Hello, I'm Bert Oliver, and welcome to Bowie News and Views. And with John Rouse today, he'll start our discussion with our guest. Please, John, proceed.
Well, thank you, Bert. We're very pleased to have with us an famous former mayor of Bowie, Dick Logue, Richard Logue, who many of you out there will know, and some of you out there probably weren't born when he was mayor, but that's okay. He's aging very well.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you back in Bowie. Give us a little synopsis of when you moved here and your history on the city council and as mayor and so forth, the dates and times and the frustrations.
The frustration. Well, let me see if I can recall. It's like you say, it's been so long.
I know.
As you get older, you know. I moved to Bowie in 1967. I moved from Minneapolis, where I was working in the marketing department for Pillsbury. And my brother knew I wanted to come back here, so he found a home in Yorktown for me to rent. So the family and I, Pat and the 3 kids, we moved here. Immediately, we got involved in the Boys Club, and immediately we got involved in the Bowie Citizens Association.
Oh, the infamous BCA.
Yes, in fact, that was my first elective office. I was the representative from Yorktown.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
And then I coached for years, and my first venture into politics was in Jim Conway's campaign for mayor.
I remember that.
And then when Jim won the mayor, and then I got involved myself. From Bob Davis and Jim Conway asked me to go to lunch one day. Well, I didn't know what was coming up, so they said, "We want you to run for council." And I says, "I don't even know where City Hall is. Why would why would you want me to run for council?" So anyway, Gene Kiley was the sitting councilman at that time. So for some reason, I said, "Sure, I'll do it. Why not?" And Gene decided not to run. Now I knew Gene, and I really liked Gene. It wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
So I was a councilman then for 9 years. And
what years were these?
I think the first year I came home was 73. So 73 to 82, I was a councilman. And in 1982, I decided I didn't like what was going on in town.
Yeah.
And I decided up or out. And
what didn't you like?
Well, we had a very, very talented woman as our mayor. Unfortunately, she couldn't distinguish between the fact that we were a nonpartisan government and she was a Republican.
Audrey Scott.
Audrey Scott, yes. And I had run with Audrey as a threesome at one of my re-elections for council persons. And anyway, Audrey she was very talented, very great speaker. She's a bright lady. And what had happened is she got so carried away with the Reagan years that she started, as all the guys in Bowie were getting riffed from the government, she started writing letters to Reagan for her Republican friends all over the state to get jobs. And meanwhile, she should have been taking care of the people here.
Well, she also represented herself in some letters as the Republican mayor of Bowie, which is a nonpartisan job.
Yeah, well, this is the one part she wasn't too smart. She wrote Sandra Day O'Connor and invited her to, she said, "I am the Republican mayor of Bowie." And that letter was on file. As a matter of fact, you've seen that letter. And that was just a little bit too much for me.
Yeah.
And the thing is, she had all these letters for these Republicans done by the city clerk at that time, wasn't Pam Fleming, on city time. And then she would take the city car and go downtown to her Republican meetings and stuff like that. And it was just, and she saw nothing wrong with it. And I guess I just thought it was wrong. We had a very, very tough election. I was told I didn't have a chance in a snowball. And I remember you kindly endorsed me in that election because...
Well, I was opposed to this totally partisan stuff. We valued our nonpartisan system.
Always did. Yeah. And as it turned out, we won very handedly. And obviously your endorsement, John, I'll give you credit, meant a lot. And if you remember, some of the stuff that went on during that campaign was really the pits, because I was accused of taking city gas and having a air conditioner put into my car. My car already had an air conditioner, so I don't know. Yeah, by city employees. I mean, so it got pretty nasty. But you know, afterwards, it was fun. I enjoyed it, and I remained 6 times, I guess, 5 additional elections after that. So 12 years total. I was mayor. 21 years total on the council. And I retired in 1994. Had a wonderful party. A lot of nice people came, and in 1996 I retired from my own job, and in 1998 I moved to Delaware, to Ocean View.
But you still have family here.
I still have a son and a daughter and 4 grandkids here. Yes.
Are they in Yorktown?
One's in Yorktown. One's in Victoria Heights. Yep.
Okay.
Well, some of the, you know, John, since you had such good success later in different opponents, and I remember how you got started, and there was some motivation there that was great, and I think everybody.
You also threw excellent parties.
Well, that's part of it back then.
Yeah, it was great.
It was a social.
We missed that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
that's
truly. Everybody knew everybody in Bowie back then.
Yeah.
If you were involved at all. And the parties, part of the party situation was really a social thing. You look forward to going to the kickoff parties.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, there was never this bitterness against each other.
Even Bert had one.
Even Bert had one, yeah.
Well, I showed up at Fred's house for one of those parties, mentioned these people on, and what's Bert doing here? So I remember those.
Yeah. I
But
showed
was
up.
welcome.
I showed up at your kickoff party at at Free State when you were
Mall.
running for state senate.
Yeah, I remember
You were
that.
there.
Yeah,
I
that's
do.
right. You were there that day.
I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had a lot of
Despite the
people.
fact he was a Republican, I found that a little bit difficult to cope with, but I managed.
Well,
You know, you have
actually, Bert showed me the way finally, and I am now.
Oh!
Well, history does have a sense of changing things, but you had so many other opponents, Dick, that just for the history. And before we started this, you named them all, and I'd forgotten them.
I had 2, quite frankly, except for a few.
Well, the reason I want to mention this is because that was
And our age has nothing to do with that, of course.
community involvement is what I want to express and see.
Well, that's right. Yeah,
here.
we had
so you had someone.
One of the big issues early on when I was a councilman was the drainage ditches in the sewer in Yorktown.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't even get a VA or an FHA loan over there because of the stench from the sewer. And Dean Gordon, after I won the first election, because that's the only election I was ever unopposed, when Gene decided not to run, the following year, Dean Gordon and Carl Ugel, who was a resident of Overbrook, both ran against me.
Yeah.
And I was successful in that one. And then Paul Champion took 2 shots at me, 2 different elections. And Bob Bassett, the wonder of Bowie, the guy who had the monkeys and the dead dogs and animals in his house. And
We do
I don't like to talk to him. I don't want to talk
folks.
too much about him.
No, let's talk.
As being a quality opponent and community involvement. But they were fun elections, and we worked very hard. And back in those days, you know, sun up to sundown, hi, I'm Dick Logue, I'm running for so-and-so and so-and-so.
Yeah.
And people appreciated that. You know?
They do.
They really did. And I have a story later on after I was mayor. I was over in the Kenilworth section, and I was knocked on the door, and a woman says, "It's about time. I haven't seen you here in 4 years."
Oh.
You know, so some people are truly watch what's going on, but they may not be very active, but they're aware.
Well, you know what's happening now, though, is that some of our more dedicated candidates are going door to door, and people are saying, "What election?"
Well, nobody, particularly back when we had early on, when we had 2 papers in town.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you and Bob Reed, the Bowie Blade News and the Bowie
News.
Bowie Blade,
Bowie Blade,
News.
Bowie
It
News.
was Bowie News,
Yeah.
and you guys kind of competed for whatever as a little competition.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was all in good fun. Nobody really got that upset about it. But everybody was aware of the election. And there were some major issues early on because we were transcending from a very liberal council under Leo Green